For a really successful low noise pickup installation, it's crucial to create a really effective grounding system in your guitar. When using passive pickups, there are several components in your guitar which need to be grounded, and a few simple rules to follow to get a great result. We'll begin by talking about which components actually need a ground connection, and then go into some details on how to hook them up. In general, the components which require a ground connection are the jack socket, your pots, switches, your pickups, any cavity shielding in the guitar, and the bridge system and strings. First and most important is the jack socket. This is the point at which the grounding system of your entire guitar connects to the ground of your amplifier, so if things aren't perfect here, then you're likely to run into some issues. Mono jack sockets, which are by far the most common type found in guitars, have two connecting terminals. You can identify the ground terminal as it will be directly connected to the tubular inner part of the socket. Pots and switches need to have a ground connection hooked up to their main metal body. So for most pots, that's the metal casing on the back of the pot. For some push-pulls, you can connect to the side of the casing. For Strat and Tele switches, these eyelets are a good location, or on the framework of the switch here. Toggle switches usually have a grounding point built into the main frame of the switch. Some switches, such as the freeway switches, will have dedicated, labelled grounding points. It's quite common to use one of your pots as a hub for all of the other ground connections in the guitar. Once the pot has a connection to the jack socket ground, it can then be used to provide a path to ground for the rest of the guitar, and a standard pot provides a handy area large enough for several solder connections. Your pickups will always have one or more wires which are intended to provide grounding for the metal parts of the pickup. For pickups with a braided hookup, the outer part of the braid is to be connected to ground. For multi-conductor hookup, there is a bare wire in there for the ground. And for Strats, Teles and bass pickups, the black cloth wire is connected to ground. Any cavity shielding in your guitar also needs to be grounded. For this, you'll often see a solder point screwed down into the wood of the guitar. This makes a connection to any shielding paint or foil that the screw passes through, and clamps the solder point down against the shielding to create a great electrical connection. For passive pickups in particular, it's also important that the guitar strings are grounded. We do this by providing a ground connection for the bridge system. For fixed bridges, we usually use a wire which passes through a hole in the guitar and is clamped hard against the metal of the bridge when the bridge is screwed down to the guitar. For guitars with a trem, this is usually a ground wire connected to the claw that holds the springs in the back of the guitar. Building an effective grounding system is something which you'll need to adapt to your own guitar, as there are a huge number of different layouts and setups, so each guitar model often requires a slightly different system. There are a couple of general rules to follow when building your ground system. Firstly, each component should only have one path to ground, so be aware of whether parts are already contacting a grounded point before adding an individual ground wire. This particularly relates to shielding mounted to the underside of a pickguard. If your pickguard has foil shielding in the area which the pots are mounted, this creates a grounding connection between the pots. Only one pot requires a ground wire, as the others are connected to it through the shielding foil. This also applies to Telecaster bridges, where the bridge pickup has a metal base plate. If the pickup itself has a ground connection, it will be sharing that ground with the bridge system through its mounting hardware, so there's no need for a separate wire. And finally, and this goes for all of your wiring, keep it simple. Keep wires as short as you can and avoid crossing wires all over the guitar. This will give you the best low noise result. I hope this helps you to get a really solid grounding connection fitted to your guitar. As always, check our website for more wiring diagrams and tech tips, or drop us a line with any questions that you have at all.